Welcome to the SPS Digital Learning Hour, brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department. We're coming to you from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the district. We'll also inform you of the latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you are new to using technology in the classroom or are a seasoned vet, we are here to help. I'm your host, Mike Thomas, the bearded tech ed guy, and I can't wait to share some of these new updates with you. And I also can't wait to share the interview. I can't wait so much that we're just going to do updates and then I'm going to share the interview because, well, it was a long one and we had a great time talking. In case you missed it, if you don't follow Microsoft Ed on YouTube, you are definitely missing out. Out there, they have updates every month about all the great things for Microsoft EDU. And this month is no different. They talk about being able to code in Minecraft and just a whole bunch of new tools that involve using things like Make Code. And if you want to see that, I would go out to YouTube, search Microsoft EDU, and then subscribe to that channel so you can get all the latest updates. They've got a whole bunch of things going on, especially this week. If you go to aka.ms/codecreators, you'll see all these great videos. They're all about a half hour. They're all about a half hour long, and they talk to you about different ways that coding is being used. So cool, so inspiring. You definitely should check it out. In case you missed it over the last couple weeks, we've got a couple more blog posts that have gone up. One is all about ways that you can use PowerPoint in the classroom that is not just for presentations, including things like making infographics, doing animation, and doing screen recordings. That is it for In Case You Missed It. Coming up next is our interview of the week. For this week's interview, I was able to sit down with Brian Cusack of Central High School. Now let me tell you something. Brian is an amazing teacher. He's got a lot of great things going on, and he is one of the ones that when I was teaching, I first learned about this idea of a flipped classroom and how it could work. He talks all about that plus so much more in his interview, so take a listen.
My name is Brian Cusack. I'm a science and technology teacher at Springfield Central High School. I've been teaching here since I was a 180, so total, this is my 8th year. They count that first year student teaching as a hired year. My hands are in putting in quotes. I think I missed some parts of...
No, we're in Central. You've been teaching 8 years, and every year has been here?
Yes, yeah. So I got in here as a student teacher. They offered me a job. I was like, totally, I love this place, and then I haven't left.
Nice. We are up in your neck of the woods, so on the 3rd floor up here, with technology, being the science and technology teacher. What are some of the first things of use of technology in the classroom have you had?
I remember when I first got here, and we just got the magnet grant, and they were talking about how every classroom is going to get a projector. And funny enough, my first thought was like, how is that not already a thing? You know, because I was going in, I was thinking like, okay, I'm a brand new teacher. I'm going to PowerPoint everything. It's going to be like, this is like the golden age. Like, got out of college and, I was thinking like, all right, how do other people teach? I'm like, this is the way I want to do it. And I get in, it's my first year student teaching, and my mentor teacher, who I love, she's amazing. She's an amazing, amazing teacher. She had an overhead projector, and that first day when she put it up and turned it on, and my heart just sank, and I thought, oh no, this is not what I had in mind. Please tell me this is not how I'm going to start my career. Fortunately, she got a projector, and she was very open to me trying new things. But that was my first touch with technology. Just having a computer with PowerPoint, literally spending countless hours trying to perfect the PowerPoint and make it the best PowerPoint that the students would ever see. And that's where it all began. And I started just kind of following this idea that, I knew teaching from my own experiences, from movies, from my TAing in college. And I said, okay, I'm going to be that teacher where I go up, I present, I have awesome PowerPoints, I hand out some worksheets, try to make some fun labs and get the students engaged. So that's how it all began. Funny enough, after my first real year teaching, so after my student teaching year, I got a position here, and I had the same plan. I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm teaching a new subject. I'm gonna rock it. By the end of that first year, it quickly dawned on me that the technology I was using almost seemed inadequate. And it was funny because a year before that, I was thinking like, this is it. This is the gung-ho, the cutting edge of how to convey information to students. And I remember looking back at myself, and I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I have to do something different. Like, there was something like, there wasn't anything wrong with it, but I just didn't personally feel like I was meeting up to the students, to them. Like, I felt like I was almost kind of letting them down. And I was looking around at all the things that were happening at the time. And this is right around when, cell phones were really becoming like big, and every single person was getting like a smartphone, every student, regardless of their background. And so I kept thinking like, okay, I'm losing them to phones, and aside from just other classroom management things. And I'm trying to make these, this really engaging lesson, but it's just not working. I suppose by coincidence, that summer I had signed up for a seminar for technology use in the classroom, and it was great. It was really cool. It was really focused on flipped classroom teaching, which was a new concept to me. I learned about it in student teaching, and I knew about it, but I didn't really know 100% what it was actually about. So I was thinking like, okay, flipped classroom has something to do with technology assisting students, where they do the reading at home, do the classwork in school, save more time, etc. So I go to this seminar, and the person who was presenting had been a teacher for a long time and then became a technology consultant. And I remember him saying that there was 9 levels of flipping a classroom. And he said that, each level doesn't necessarily mean it's more complicated. There's just different ways to do it. And he said levels 1 through 7 is going to be the so-called normal range of flipping a classroom. And he mentioned things like, okay, so you can introduce, the idea of even simple things like getting them on what we now know as Remind.com, like an instant, messaging program you can use in class, out of class. You also mentioned like even literally using like a projector, showing videos, going to websites. And then, so he went through all of those, and he eventually got to the point where he said, okay, so there's these levels 8 and 9 that I've been alluding to, and this is the levels that you take everything you know and kind of throw it out the window. So level 8, he said, was a real legit flipped classroom. And he gave like the standard definition that everyone knew at the time, where, you use technology, the students go home, they're watching videos of teachers presenting the material, either like they're standing in front like in a camera, or there's a screen annotated version of notes, and they come into class and they do the work in class after having learned the content at home. And when I heard this and he was talking about it, I was like, this could be it. Like, this sounds like the path that I want to go. And I knew that the school at the time, Springfield as a whole, but Central specifically, was talking about, we're looking into laptop cards, like we're going to really try to move forward. Paul Foster, the head of ITA, just kind of stepped in recently around then, and there was a lot of buzz and talk, and it was like a lot of excitement. I was getting really excited. I'm like, okay, this is it. And then he talks about level 9. And the first thing that this person said that changed my career forever, he said that level 9 is taking every single thing that I just told you and not just throwing it out the window, but like taking everything off the desk, flipping the desk over, pushing it out the window, like lighting the building on fire and starting completely over. And this is what I'm now doing today with my classroom. So level 9 was jumping full on to the deep end of technology. His version of level 9 that he described is a little bit different than what I'm doing now. I'm using the tools that we have, very fortunately, Brightspace and soon to be Power School United. But my entire classroom is solely built online. There's some exceptions where there's obviously, as a science teacher, some things that cannot be replicated online. Certain, especially for physics, key labs that really need to be done in person. But for the most part, students can technically complete my entire course, including like all the traditional things, taking notes, completing worksheets, tests, quizzes. Tests and quizzes if they were monitored in an appropriate manner. But they could do the entire thing technically online, technically without my presence even. It's built in such a way that, not to say that the teacher's not important, but I'm technically not even needed. A lot of the things that I started hearing more recently is that this mimics the credit recovery system that we have, where it's very similar. The students are on their own. They acquire the knowledge. They prove their knowledge. And so since that year, I jumped straight in. I jumped onto a learning management system called Schoology, which is really great. They had a free option with very limited limitations at the time. I walked in the following year with my class, and I literally told them day one, I don't know what I'm doing, which is probably terrible for classroom management. But I was honest with them. I told them, I'm trying something completely new. I don't know how this is going to work out. I have a backup plan to go back to, quote, normal teaching. And if it doesn't work out, we'll do that. But if it does work, then we'll give it a try. So I started literally by telling them, like, everything for the week is online. Here it is. It's in a folder. I'm going to present the notes, but otherwise get all these assignments done. And it had some interesting results. And that's things that I still actually see today. So the first round kind of worked, had to fine tune it, kind of like anything new for teaching any lessons, try to figure it out. And by halfway through the year, we were rolling, and we had laptop cards in the building. So the students came in, they logged on. We were trying out different things. There's a website for science teachers called PhET Simulations out of University of Colorado. It's amazing. And that really helped out even in its infancy a few years ago. And, we were just rolling with things, and just the momentum built. And I remember working with Jackie Quinney, who used to work in the district as a tech specialist. And I got to meet her, and she ended up coming to my class, and we were just throwing things left and right at the students. Like, okay, let's try Microsoft Officing up, so to speak, the labs. Instead of plotting out graphs by hand, we now had them on Excel, learning the basics of Excel in an applied environment, and watching them, get, the data points and like best fit lines and talking about slopes, and just, it just kept going. It was just like, for me, it was a career changer. Going from, I don't know what I'm doing, to I'm a new teacher, to this doesn't feel right, to all of a sudden finding like this thing that just clicked with me personally, and feeling like I was doing something for the students that I could stand behind, admittedly, with its ups and downs. But overall, it's just something that I'm holding on to, and I keep refining and moving forward and trying new things. And as I've been doing this, I've noticed that there's other teachers in the district, like around the country, who are following this. And even so, more so, I teach AP Computer Science, and they have a new version of the course called Principles. And the curriculums that are coming out for that are following the same idea. My AP students walk in, there's a website, tells them, okay, do ABC, then check in with the teacher. And it's cool. It's really neat to see how, I feel like I've kind of jumped on this early bandwagon without even knowing it, and this trend of using technology in this way to allow students to kind of cater their learning, so to speak.
With your transformation that you took, and basically telling the students, I have no idea what's going to happen, but we're going to go forward and do this. Yeah. How did they react, and how has their abilities using technology changed as the time has gone on from that first initial, I don't know what I'm doing, to today?
Right. Okay, so day one, so to speak, for this, I tell them, I don't know what I'm doing, and I get a lot of laughs, a lot of commentary from the students. But when the dust settled in the beginning, I think for them it was kind of exciting, honestly, because not saying that other teachers weren't doing it, but I think that for a lot of the students, it was just kind of new and different. So even though they were still doing essentially the same assignments, because I didn't really change them, I just moved them from a piece of paper to a computer, all of a sudden it was cool, it was great, it was different. And I remember a few students literally telling me that they just really liked, it was a physics class, but they liked the class because it just wasn't the same as everyone else's. So after a couple of years, I started to notice that kind of commentary started dropping, because other teachers were, in their own way, in a variety of different ways, stepping into the aforementioned level 1 through even 8. So there were all kinds of teachers trying out new technology tools, and I noticed that the students I had coming in were no longer necessarily impressed by the way I was running the class. And so just the fact that it was online and that a worksheet was now digitized just wasn't enough anymore. So it's prompted a new change, like a new thought of like, okay, how do I step up my game yet again? At this point, I found that, and this is the current system I'm working with, fortunately with Brightspace rolling in, I was offered a tool that for a math-based class I found to be one of the greatest things, and it seems to keep me kind of like on the cutting edge, so to speak, of how I'm teaching my students, which I'm still getting comments today about how like, wow, this is really cool. The math-based questions in my class, being a physics class, is a lot of math. I've made it so that the so-called worksheets that they do will load up. All the questions are exactly the same as everyone else's, except that the numbers are randomly generated. And so now I'm able to come in my modern day version of this class, which the students are really kind of interested in. I found that this interest has kind of retained itself over the years. I tell them, you're allowed to work together. In fact, I tell them you should work together. And I say that your numbers are different. You should talk to each other about how to solve the problem so you can figure it out for yourself, either independently or in groups. The best part about the whole thing is that it's auto-graded. So as a teacher, let's admit, I mean, that sucks up an incredible amount of time.
Yes, it does.
So I like to tell some people, like kind of off record, I got creatively lazy because I don't have to grade a vast majority, well, personally hand grade a vast majority of the stuff. But the other thing that the students really liked is that they can redo it at will. So I can tell my students now, like, hey, try the worksheet. If you don't do so well, you get, let's just say, like a 50. You can do it again. The numbers change. So it's not just them going back and copying their old numbers or going to another partner and getting numbers. It's now like, okay, no, do you really understand what I'm trying to teach you? And I find that somewhat unprovoked, a lot of students will get 80s or 90s and say to me or to themselves, this isn't good enough. You know, I tell them, like, there's nothing wrong with getting an 80%. That's mastery level. And they're like, no, I can do this. I want 100. And so I find that, like, the idea of being able to go back at will has kind of provoked this kind of sense of ownership of their learning. And that's something that, admittedly, I wasn't really aware of when I put this all together. But now that I'm older, I'm officially a professional teacher. I have a lot more insight into learning, the psychology of learning. I find that that's ultimately what happened. And I think without knowing it, that's what I was looking for. I wanted them to get excited and be able to take over and say, I want to learn this, as opposed to me 7 years ago saying, you have to learn this.
Right, that's a completely different mindset, which is pretty awesome to see. With you being a science teacher, I know with physics it is a lot of math, but there are also labs and things that you have to create.
Right.
So how do you do the labs in the classroom versus the online stuff, which we've been talking about?
Right. So at this point, what I've decided to do is focus all labs using Microsoft Office in either its intended purpose or creative purposes. So let me explain. Standard issue, like one of the first labs we do in the class involves a motorized car, and you have to characterize motion. So you're measuring distances and the amount of time it moves, and you calculate speed and so on. So I have them fill out a Microsoft Word document that I learned can be locked out. So essentially, it's like almost having a PDF where you have a bunch of text or pictures that can't be edited, modified, or touched, and there's areas where the students can type in their responses. So to start off, I give them this highly structured format to say, okay, you know, this is the introduction, this is, you know, the materials that you're using, and go through, you know, like a standard science grade lab format, and basically have them fill in the data and fill in the conclusion questions. They'll download it from me, fill it out, submit it back through Brightspace, and I'm able to open up their files within Brightspace and, you know, go through, and fortunately Brightspace allows kind of like a traditional method of grading, so I can use like an annotation to circle this and type this and say, hey, you know, you really need to reevaluate how you calculated this and so on, give them a grade and everything's good. As the year progresses, I try to so-called take off the training wheels. So this is a CP level class for sophomores. And so I know for a fact that our chemistry teachers here really have certain expectations for the students in science class to be a little more independent, to be able to think for themselves. Setting that as kind of a benchmark, because I completely agree with it. I try to slowly wean them off of a highly structured format to basically say by the end of the year, they're going to create their own Microsoft Word document from nothing, essentially, with all of the knowledge and guidelines they received throughout the quarters to create a lab report that will meet the expectations of perhaps a higher level science class. So our pre-AP science class would really hold them to standards where they're in a lab separate section and that they have to do this right from the get-go. For a CP level class, I try to extend it out. But the nice thing is that even with Microsoft Word in this way, I can essentially just start chopping out sections. And it also is nice to accommodate, because if there's a student with just like whatever, a generic nondescript learning disability who maybe would need additional things, I can kind of just put that back for them and adjust it. So the other side of it with the use of Microsoft Office, especially in non-conventional ways, I'm a big PowerPoint artist, as I like to refer to myself as. So I use PowerPoint because I could learn Photoshop, but in a lot of respects, I just claim I don't have time to actually do it. So I use Photoshop to draw pictures. And one of the things that I do with the students is say, hey, look, you have PowerPoint, which is a great tool to create, like slides and present material, but you can also use it for this. And I'll have them create diagrams about what they did, or try to create models or pictures of models, which is, say, for example, circular motion in orbits, saying like, find some open source, specifically clip art, put it in, use the drawing tools to model out, I guess in this case, what would an orbit look like, and draw some vectors or arrows, I should say, for, how gravity is affecting this stuff. And if not for anything else, this could be easily done in like a variety of ways. You can easily hand the students a piece of paper, say, okay, draw all this stuff. But I find just having them do it with the tools like this just kind of opens up the idea. It's like, okay, yes, for the assignment, like we're doing something needlessly complicated with technology. But I hope that it kind of opens up the doors for them to say, like, hey, the next time you get to draw a picture, like, why not use this tool that, especially here, in Springfield, that everyone has Office 365, is already available to them.
Right.
I would say overall, the technology use, especially in this regard, like for labs and like things that are not like solely built in the bright space, was heavily Microsoft Office and a variety of like a few other websites here and there. And there's a bazillion things. So yeah, it's been interesting, and I'm looking back now, kind of like actually thinking about the progression that I made to get to this point, and it's something that certainly didn't happen overnight. There was a lot of ups and downs. I know that every teacher listening knows exactly what I'm talking about. Having the days where you're ready to go cry in like your closet, or like just being like so hyped that something clicked and worked so well. And I feel like the use of technology in this way has been on that same roller coaster, where there's days that there's no Wi-Fi and it's like, and I need to go to the backup plan that's completely offline, or even discovering a new internet-based resource, or even, I had an honors class one year, and I literally threw them on a website called PubMed, because I used to be a scientific researcher, generally speaking, and this is scientific publications, especially ones that were funded by somehow through a U.S. government agency. And, when we're talking about things like, like in biology, like genetics, generically speaking, being able to tell them like, hey, go find like a recent publication in the last couple of years, something to do with genetics, and to watch them get into these things and to say like, oh, I just discovered this, like not really understand half of what's being said because it's highly specific, but just to show them that like, yes, like you at a high school level can go and look at this stuff and become inspired and apply your knowledge from a high school level class, to like literally like top end, like modern, super fresh research, which I don't think like realistically would be easily achievable without technology. Yes, could have gotten out of the library, put out some reference books, but and at the risk of potentially upsetting any library science specialists, I think it just comes down to convenience. We only have so much time to get things done, and it's just nice to be able to say, not just, here, I have this for you, like actually to have them go discover it is just so much more to me that technology in general has allowed me to offer them.
Yeah, that is awesome. So you are doing a lot of great things in the classroom. When it comes to people who are just freshly hired, freshly out of college or coming from a different district, they go through a new hire orientation, and in that they get a whole lot of information thrown at them at once.
Right.
So if you had the opportunity to stand up there and be one of those people who gives the information, what would that advice be, whether technology or not?
So the one thing I would say, the first thing that comes to mind is just, I suppose, get comfortable. There's a lot of thought that I have to this, so I'll try to explain it short, concise. I feel like kind of like stepping into any situation, anything, regardless of what it is, professional, non-professional, hobby. I feel like that a lot of us, when we step into something new, even if we've been teaching for many, many years, and we suddenly change to a new school district, even a school, the culture is potentially going to be so much different. And I think that for a lot of teachers, especially new teachers, they're stepping into a world that obviously many people are successful with, but I think something that's really kind of underestimated or maybe even unspoken is that it's almost rough or brutal. Like the amount of things that you're suddenly expected to try to catch up on and like get acclimated to is I even will literally say like humanly impossible, even for an experienced teacher. Like if I, for whatever reason, ever had to leave Springfield, which I certainly hope I don't, because I really like it here and I love my job here. I'm not just saying that. I really do. Just the thought of like, even like teaching in like Westfield, the city that we live in, like it's like the thought like honestly terrifies me, because I know the culture of my school here, and I just kind of know without even thinking like not just like the rules, but like the students and the way that they conduct themselves. It's something that I'm familiar with. I know how to respond to, and it's not to say anything about an urban environment versus a suburban versus like a rural environment. I think it's just literally anything. Like you have to allow yourself to become comfortable with your surroundings. And so with that said, I would say to tack onto it, one of the best things that new teachers can do, because older teachers, or I should say more established teachers, will have a toolkit that they can use, is to really rely on the resources that are already established, already made. My mentor teacher, I mentioned before, I love her to death. She's an amazing teacher. We have two completely different teaching styles, like when it comes down to it. And when I first got started, I adopted onto her style, and it ultimately made me a successful teacher. Yes, at some point I said to myself, something doesn't feel right, want to make some changes. But the point is that without her guidance and just getting the baseline things that either we're conscious of or unconscious of, as emerging or professional teachers, like just being in her classroom and watching her in, her, I can't think of the word, like, in her, I was going to say prime, that's not the right phrase, like in her environment, or her, I can't think of the term, whatever, when she's teaching, watching her do what she does best. And being able to say like, that was a good idea is great. But it also means that, to take on the overhead projector notes that were already pre-made and to follow her system was really good, because it was, and then at that point, I didn't have to worry about spending extra time to build PowerPoints. I was able to say, okay, I have the notes, they're structured here, I know how to work with this. And so I'm going to focus on everything else. Mm-hmm. So I'd say, I guess, kind of a TLDR, like Reddit term for those who don't too long didn't read or didn't want to pay attention to me ramble. I would say know your limitations, and really just kind of focus on getting comfortable. Like in a really short statement, I would say that's what it comes down to. I would also say I was guilty of this. It's probably what prompted me to go full out level 9, flip the table kind of a thing with technology. I feel like many new teachers come in and they have this feeling like, I'm going to make a difference. Like I'm going to be the change that, schools need. And it's a great feeling to have, but know that you're only human and that we all do want the best for our students. Also have to kind of take in a little bit of reality to know what our limitations are in terms of ourselves, what we are capable of, and what we have available to us. And with that said, I cannot even begin to express how grateful I am, like legitimately, to Springfield for having all this technology because, if I didn't have it, sure, I'd probably still be a teacher. I'd probably be doing a little more, not overheads, but I think I might still be that teacher that, does PowerPoints and has kind of fallen into a routine and maybe try to modify and step up things a little bit. But the fact that this technology is available is a great thing. And I'll even say for the first year, maybe even not go full speed into it. I hear a lot of teachers who, at all different points say like, I want to use Brightspace, but they literally say like, I don't have time to invest to learn it because we have lives. Like I'm a father of 2 with another one on the way, and I have a social life, and I have my career, and all this and everything factored in. Like not enough hours in a day. So yeah, I would say know your limits. And come up with a realistic plan. Starting year 1, get your footing down, get comfortable. Year 2, step up a little bit. And then year 3, maybe try something completely new like I did. And then even then, it's just every year, it's a constant like, okay, this thing didn't work out so well. I'm going to change that, modify this. And, but even at that, like I do get some ideas sometimes that's like, I could flip the table again, but I literally hold myself back to say, I just don't have time. And I've personally kind of come to accept that I'm not going to stop innovating, going to keep moving forward, but just know boundaries and have time to yourself.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great chat. I know that you also have a club going on next door, so I thank you for giving up some part of your time today.
Sure, no problem. They're fine, whatever. As long as the room's not burning down, it's okay. I should probably go check on them. But
which is a good thing it's not chemistry and it is physics instead.
Yes, and the gas is shut off, so there's no worries there.
All right, well, thank you again.
Of course.
So, as you can hear, Brian is super excited and enthusiastic about everything he's doing in the classroom, especially when it comes to how he felt that running his classroom the way that he believes it should run, and the fact that the students are really learning and they are learning to love learning, and that he has a very great attitude about when it comes to technology and how to integrate it well into the classroom. One of the things that I definitely took away from my time was that everything that Brian does, there's a purpose behind it, and it's not using technology for technology's sake, which I think is a very huge and very important thing to remember, that just because we have it doesn't mean you should use it for everything. There are certain tools that are great for certain things. Not every tool is the right tool for your classroom. We're hoping that with many of the tools that we use right now, like Unified Classroom and Office 365, that those can help you kind of streamline that process to what makes a better sense for you. Now, if you're looking to learn more about how to use Unified or Office 365 or a host of other different tools in the classroom, you should come to our Wednesday sessions, our We Learn Wednesdays. If you go out there on My Learning Plan, take a look and see what sessions are being offered. Any of the drop-in sessions, feel free to just come and ask questions. Those are a great time to get one of us on our team to be able to help you and figure out ways that the tool can work for you. If you're always looking for more inspiring ways to use technology in the classroom, I encourage you to follow me on Twitter, BeardedTechEdGuy, or follow me on Instagram, BeardedTechEd. And on there, I post things, I share things that others are doing, and again, we just want to give you the tools that will help you become the best teacher you can be. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. Again, you can find me out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. You can also easily reach out to me at dlasupport@springfieldpublicschools.com. I tried to be very prompt in my emailing back, and so I hope that you reach out if you do have questions. Remember, you can find us anywhere where podcasts are available. Wherever you do listen to us, though, I encourage you to go out and give us a 5-star rating. We love the 5 stars. Also, let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback. You can do that through Yammer, you can do that through email, or on any of the places where we're posted. We'd love to hear from you and love to hear about the things that you are doing. And if you think you'd be great for the interview of the week, I would love to come out and meet with you. If you know of someone who would be great for the interview of the week, I'd love for you to send me an email with their name so that I can formally ask them myself. I'm Mike Thomas, and this is the SPS Digital Learning Hour.